Greetings and salutations, this is Tech Ronan here, and I kind of want to address something. So, I'm a big Resident Evil fan, right? And I've already pretty much covered my top 3 Resident Evil games in terms of Let's Plays. And my 4th favorite is probably up next, unless I get RE4 Remake. But my 4th favorite being Revelations 2, which is probably up next. But what I want to talk about is an RE game that I've been avoiding, and I probably will keep avoiding for the time being. And okay, so I've expressed that I'm not a big fan of Code Veronica, RE6, or RE0. And those are games I'm probably never going to be Let's Playing, you know? I've already expressed that, but okay, ignore the fact that the background gameplay is Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I just didn't have any other game to record for this because I didn't want to put any Resident Evil remake video or clips here because, you know, I'm doing a Let's Play of that at the moment. Don't want to spoil anything, you know? But basically, back to the topic at hand. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Now, I'm a little brief history about me being a fan of Resident Evil. I first became a fan of Resident Evil via Resident Evil Rev 2, which is the Resident Evil game I started out with. So you can imagine why it, along with Resident Evil 1 and 2 remakes and RE Village, are my top 4 Resident Evil games of all time. Keeping in mind that I've never played the original RE4 or the remake of it, or the original versions of 1, 2, and 3. But that's not the point. Those are my top 4 RE games of all time, with Revelations 1 being number 5. It barely making the top 5. Basically, if I love RE4 remake, when I do get around to playing it, it'll basically bump Rev 1 down, which RE Village already did. Well, RE Village bumped the Rev 1 and the remake of 1 down already, but you know, it's whatever. But yeah. I started out playing Resident Evil through Revelations 2, right? And my second game in the Resident Evil series was Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Okay, so I loved Resident Evil 7 Biohazard so much that it's the reason that I delved into like other Resident Evil games, why I gave the Revelations games a chance, why I tried the original version of RE5 and 6, which granted 6 sucked. But yeah, that's why I tried those. It's why I tried RE0. It's why I got the RE2 remake and the RE3 remake and loved both of those. Got RE Village. RE7 Biohazard is pretty much solely responsible for me being a Resident Evil fan, because even though I loved RE Rev 2, it was a spin-off game. So when I tried Resident Evil Biohazard, it was kind of a gamble because I didn't know if I was going to like it or not because of how different it was from Rev 2. Not only because Rev 2 was a spin-off game, but because they play completely different. But I ended up loving it, and it's why I'm still an RE fan. It's why I became an RE fan in general, because Rev 2 could have just been the only game in the series I liked, but it wasn't. I ended up liking Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and I continued from there. But you may notice that Resident Evil 7 Biohazard isn't in my top 5. And quite honestly, outside of my top 5, I don't revisit many other RE games that much. I do revisit RE7 and RE0 here and there because they're okay games, and I do enjoy them like once in a blue moon, but they're not games that I would want to come back to like on a yearly basis like I do with RE2 and RE1 remakes. RE1 remake I kind of come back to every couple years. I've played it like 3 times now, two of them being recent, my Let's Play, and a new game after that. But basically what I'm getting at is I don't hate Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. I don't. It's the primary reason I'm a Resident Evil fan. I gotta appreciate it for that. And at the time, it was one of my favorite games of all time. But here's something I'm willing to admit looking back on it. It is not as great as I thought it was. And In general, 2017 was just a year of games that I loved at the time, but then I look back on and I'm not that fond of them. The exception to this being the Insane trilogy, which I still do love, not nearly as much as Crash 4 or CTR Nitro Fuel, but I do still love it. That being said, the reason why I say 2017 was a disappointing year was because the other two games I was really excited about was The Walking Dead: A New Frontier and RE7. And The Walking Dead: New Frontier kind of off the bat disappointed me when I first played it. But RE7 kind of was a slow burn disappointment. Because at first I really loved it. I played the game 3 times back to back. I think the first time was on the easy difficulty, and then the 2 repeated playthroughs were on the standard, normal difficulty, whatever it's called for that game. But basically what I'm getting at is, I can't hate RE7 because of my history with it. I can't really say that it's a bad game at all. It's a really good game. It's the reason Resident Evil bounced back, and I gotta appreciate it for that. So this video is not to hate on RE7, and it's not to say I'm never going to play it, because eventually I will let's play it. It's just not going to happen soon. You know, I got 2 or 3 other RE games I want to play before it. 2 of them being the Rev games, but I also want to get RE4 Remake and play both that and RE3 before it. You know? I want to play all 4 of those games before I get to RE7. That being said, though, here's where we get to my gripes with it. Now, honestly, like I said, RE7 is not a bad game, but it's a little bit disappointing looking back on it. Because the reason why I loved it so much at the time was because it brought back the horror that was kind of only in the Revelation spin-offs before that. And eventually I learned that the thing I love most in RE games is the survival aspect, not necessarily the horror aspect, but the survival aspect, which is something that the RE1 and 2 remakes get really well done. They get done really well. RE Village also does it really well, but in a different way. The Revelations game do it really well, especially Rev 2. Rev 2 is really good at having survival aspects to it. You gotta basically, I like the feeling of panicking because you need to heal, or because you got limited ammo and all that stuff, which is not necessarily the horror aspect of Resident Evil, it's the survival aspect. I like inventory management, which, yes, while that's not really present in Rev 1, and it's barely there for Rev 2, it is still a thing in most games, and the Rev games even though they lack it, they still give you a sense of surviving and figuring stuff out, and that's what I like. I like the feeling of surviving and figuring stuff out. I like the puzzles in RE. I like the survival aspects in RE. And the problem I have with 7 is that it feels like all of this on easy mode. Here's the thing with 7. Here's what I don't like about 7. The main thing I don't like about it. The enemies in 7 are really tough. That's the survival aspect that makes you feel like you're struggling to survive in that game. Whereas in RE1 and 2 remakes, it's the inventory management combined with the limited ammo that's doing that. In the Revelations games, it's the limited ammo along with certain enemies having to be tackled certain ways that deal with that. The Revelations games are really smart when it comes to having enemies that are dealt with certain ways, because later in the game in Rev 1, you have an enemy that can really only be killed by your stronger guns. It cannot be killed by weaker ones. You have to either use the Magnum or the sniper on it. And in Rev 2 gets really good at it because you have an invisible enemy at one point who is hard to kill, and you have to use Natalia to see it. But another smart thing is they both get bosses really well done, which bosses are something that are hit or miss in the Resident Evil series. But back to the topic of RE7. RE7's survival, quote-unquote survival aspect is lacking. What it mainly focuses on is the horror and puzzles, which is fine by me because I also do love the puzzles. But the puzzles in RE7 are the easiest across the entire series. They literally take no thought or effort to them. You don't have to figure them out or anything like that. They're pretty much easy. I believe the first time I played through RE7, I actually knew how to solve every puzzle pretty easily because you were either given like a file right before it that tells you how to do it, or like you literally look at it and know how to do it, which the latter is the case with most puzzles in that game, which is the problem. And on repeat Let's Plays, the only puzzle that would be a little difficult to figure out, that being the dog head puzzle, is really easy because the locations are not at all hard to get to, except for the final one, which you would be going down to get anyway because you have to face a boss down there. So yeah, but what I'm getting at with this is that the puzzles are really easy. The survival aspect is barely there. The survival aspect in that game is basically tougher enemies. The inventory management is the easiest it's been in the entire series in that game. And that's even comparing to RE Village, which has a huge inventory for you to mess around with. It's even comparing to that. But RE7's inventory management is the easiest in the series, in my opinion, even compared to RE Village. On top of that, there's never a point where I felt like, when I play that game, there's never a point where I'm panicking because I'm running low on ammo or I'm running low on healing items or anything like that. When I do run low on healing items, it feels more frustrating than it does, like, panicking. What I mean is that the way that, like, RE7 feels is more, like, on the easy difficulty, RE7 is really underwhelming. It is not fun at all, which I guess that's fair because it's easy difficulty. I don't really play any RE games on easy difficulty except for RE1 Remake and Revelations 1. And I have reasons for playing those on easy, but the other games I play on normal. So I guess that's just because easy mode's too easy for me, right? Well, you go on normal mode, and the problem is you run out of healing items too fast, and it's too frustrating, which is a problem I don't have in any other RE game. I have an easy time avoiding damage in the other games. RE7 is frustrating because of your limited ability to, like, dodge enemies, because there's really not much, like, skill to it. You either run away from enemies and avoid using extra healing items, or you tank hits and use all of them. And that's a little bit frustrating. I like that right at, like, literally the next game they released after it, RE2 Remake, got it right. Where, like, you had an easier time evading enemies, in part due to the third-person camera, but on top of that, the healing items were just enough, both on easy and normal difficulty, to make you feel like you have to use all of them. And if you're skilled enough at the game, like I can be on some Let's Plays, I don't use all of them. Like, it feels kind of rewarding. I feel like RE7 doesn't get this right because the molded are so tanky and so hard to dodge because of how slow Ethan is, that it's ridiculous. And I could even compare it to RE Village, which, yeah, RE Village is easier than RE7. Which, normally, I don't like a game being easier. I like it being, like, a little more challenging on its normal difficulty. Because I don't like playing hard mode, you know? I don't like playing hard mode. I like playing normal modes that are a little tougher. But RE7's normal mode is like a weird line between too easy and too frustratingly hard. And then its easy mode is so easy that it's boring to get through. And I just don't have fun on its hard mode. It's the only RE game where there's not a difficulty where I'm comfortable at. With RE Village and RE2 Remake, I'm comfortable at standard difficulty. Same with RE3 Remake. With the original RE1 Remake, or with RE1 Remake, I'm comfortable at easy difficulty. Not very easy, which I mistakenly chose when I did my Let's Play, or started my Let's Play, but regular easy mode. Like, that's where I'm comfortable there. Same with Rev 1. With Rev 2, I'm comfortable on its normal mode. It depends on my skill at the game. I'm most skilled at RE Village, Rev 2, and RE2 Remake. That's why I can play their standard modes, and with the case of RE2, I've actually beaten its hard mode before. It's a little too tough for me, but I've done it. And you're watching me play hard mode on Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart right now. Like, this is a game that I was surprised to find out I actually enjoy the hard mode of. I don't enjoy the hard mode of mini games, but I love it for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and RE2 Remake. RE7 never gets the balance that feels great to me. It's either play the game where it's so easy that it's boring, or play a game that goes back and forth between being so easy it's boring and being so hard that it's frustrating, or play a game that's so hard it's frustrating. There's no in-between with RE7, and that's what I don't like about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the characters of RE7, I love the writing of the dialogue, I love a lot of the gameplay elements outside of the molded, I love the bosses, except for the final one. It's just literally that the game has a problem with not giving you a fun difficulty. And this might just be me, because I'm not someone who has fun with games that are way too easy, or with games that are way too hard. I like a middle ground where, like, it's challenging enough. Like the hard mode of Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart that I'm playing right now. This hard mode has killed me several times, but none of the times did it frustrate me. I had fun with it. Crash 4 has a similar difficulty thing with it, where I love the difficulty because of the same reason. It killed me a lot, but it never frustrated me. It just made me want to get better at the game. And that's something that the hard mode of RE2 Remake is also like. Same with the hard mode of Rise of the Tomb Raider. If a game does that, it's automatically one of the best games that I've ever played. But I'm also willing to play a game that gets a balance where at least it's fun. I don't want it to be so easy that it's boring, or be the frustrating kind of hard where I feel like I couldn't have done anything to play it better. And that's where I feel I'm at with RE7. I've played through the game like 5 times since I first got it back in 2017, which, yes, RE7 along with RE2 are the only RE games I got the year of release. They are the only 2 I've done that with. I might do that with RE4 Remake because of how early out in the year it came out, but I don't know yet. But basically what I'm saying is I don't enjoy the gameplay of RE7. It doesn't feel fair. It doesn't have that like sense of survival where like you feel like you need to get better, you feel like you need to play tactically. It doesn't give you the options to do that either, because Ethan moves slow, his aim is horrible. He doesn't really have an option for dodging or backing away from enemies because he's just as slow as they are. And the only enemies that you can do that with are the bosses, which is why I love the bosses. You could like dodge them, but the molded are not like that. And I've already thought about this before, but the molded are literally carbon copies of the ooze from Rev 1. They really are. And it's something that I actually couldn't help but notice after I did play Rev 1, especially since 2 of the ooze literally act the same as 2 of the molded. Now, don't get me wrong, there's like 2 molded that are a little more original. There's the 4-legged molded and there's the big molded. However, the 4-legged molded acts like a liquor. The big molded is kind of original, but the 4-legged molded acts like a liquor. And the bladed molded and the basic molded both act like the variants of the ooze from Rev 1. Another thing I don't like about RE7 is that the enemy variety is not only is the enemy variety low, the enemy creativity is low. It feels like they just wanted to bring the lickers and the ooze back in a game where people could appreciate the ooze more, because not a lot of people play Rev 1 compared to the other RE games. But they couldn't make it in-universe excuse for both returning, so they just made molded that are shaped like them and act like them and basically play against you like them. The problem that arises with that, though, is that the ooze and the lickers were the enemies designed for characters that have more precise aim and can move a little faster. Ethan does not have precise aim, and he does not move a bit faster. That is why normal difficulty in RE7 is not fun. Because due to those limitations, the game feels wonky to play, and it feels like it's unfair when you do die. It doesn't feel like it's your fault. And yeah, I know that my whole video has just been complaining about like how I don't like how hard the game can feel, but I'd rather play on that difficulty and have those hardships than play on easy, because on easy mode the game is so boring that I always give up after the old house where you fight Marguerite for the second time in the greenhouse. After the second time you fight Marguerite, I always give up on easy mode because it gets so boring by that point that I do not want to play it anymore. At least on normal mode, I'll have a drive to finish the game, so I can give it that. But RE7 is in a weird spot for me where I really love its characters, I love its writing, I love aspects of its gameplay, but due to the weird way its difficulty works and the survival aspect of it being kind of like wonky due to you not having many options to evade or dodge enemies, because of how the molded move and where the molded are usually placed, as well as how linear the game is, which is another problem with me. And yeah, I know RE Village is pretty linear, but there are parts of RE Village that feel open-ended. Like there's a couple sections of Heisenberg's factory where you have two different paths to go down, and you could tackle either one first. There's the Dimitrescu castle, which they're just similar. You have multiple options at the beginning when you get there. Even RE Village gets, like, the survival aspect better. And it's more action-focused. And its story-wise, it's more linear. But it feels less linear in the gameplay layout than RE7. It kind of does. And that's really the other problem I have with RE7 is the linearity. Which, yeah, I'm not against linear games. Let me get that out there. I love Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart to death, and I love that you can explore in the levels, and there's side missions you can do in the levels. But I will admit that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is a really linear game. I will admit that. It's not a game being linear that's the problem with me. It's a game being so linear that you can tell it's linear, like it sucks you out of it, which is kind of what RE7 does after you face Marguerite for the second time. Because after that point, a lot of the illusion of the game not being linear is lost. It pretty much is. Because the only part of the game that felt non-linear was the old house and the first visit to the Baker Mansion. That was the only parts of the game that didn't feel so, like, really linear, even though they kinda were a little bit. But yeah, I'm done basically complaining about RE7. RE7's not a bad game, and I will eventually tackle it, most likely on normal mode. Because, like I said before, I get so bored of easy mode that I never finish the game on easy mode, except for my first run of it. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video to kind of explain why I'm probably not going to touch RE7 for a while, and as long as there's another Resident Evil game I'd rather play, it's going to keep being pushed back. So if anybody wants me to play it, don't get your hopes up, because it's not going to be happening anytime soon. I still got 4 RE games in the way of it, including one of which I still got to get, which is RE4 Remake. And there's likely going to be more RE games released before I'm done with all 4 of those, which will make it even more delayed. RE7 is a game I'm going to keep putting off for a while until there's a game I'd rather play it over. So I just wanted to get that out there, and I'm sorry for any RE7 fans who watched my channel and saw that I played, and saw the 3 Resident Evil games I've been playing. I'm really sorry about that. I apologize. I'm sorry that I can't enjoy RE7 as much as other people. And I'll admit, RE7 deserves the love it gets. I'm not, like I said, this video wasn't to hate on it. It was kind of just to explain why I don't personally like playing it other RE games. At the time of release, RE7 was a game I really enjoyed. It was a game where, I loved it. I thought it was perfect. But after, RE2 Remake and RE Village, 2 games that I think are much better than it, the cracks in RE7 kind of started to show for me. It kind of started to show that the game felt wonky in comparison to those 2 games. It showed that it just wasn't a game for me, you know? Not anymore anyway, because at the time when I first played RE7, I enjoyed Resident Evil for the horror aspect, because Rev 2 also had horror in it. That's what I thought I enjoyed it for, but as I played games more, it's really the survival aspect. Horror, I do prefer horror to be in the game, but as long as it feels like I have to actively try to survive, I like the game. You know, that's how RE2, that's why RE2 and RE Village are my top 2 favorite RE games, with RE1, Rev 2, and Rev 1 coming after. Because they all have moments where I actively have to try to survive, where it feels like a chore to survive in a way that's fun. A chore probably wasn't the right word. It feels like it takes effort to survive without it being a chore, is really what I mean. But I don't know. That's basically what I'm getting at. Again, I'm sorry to anybody who wants to see me play RE7. I will eventually get around to it. Shoot, who knows? Maybe in the future I'll rethink what I'm currently thinking about RE7, and I'll play it before some of the games that I listed. You know, maybe I'll play it sooner than I thought. Who knows? Maybe my mind will change. This video was just kind of like a new type of video I'm trying out. I kind of want to start doing, throwing in some discussion videos in my seasons of Ronan games, and I thought this was a good place to start, since this is a topic I had a lot to say about, even though that lot I did have to say about it was kind of just adding more onto the same aspects rather than giving a long list. So I'm sorry that I literally spent 30 minutes talking about 3 things I didn't like about RE7. I'm sorry about that. I just had to get everything out. I had to explain it. I felt I needed to vent about this because I always see everybody love RE7, and I'm just like, it's not that great of a game, my dude. It's a good game. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad game, but I don't know. Sometimes it's a little frustrating to see how everybody still holds RE7 as one of the best RE games, when in reality, in my opinion at least, it's kind of in the middle. It's kind of in the middle area. It's not one of the better games, but it's a good enough game where I can call the game good. And when I say middle area, I'm kind of talking about it's above RE0, but it's below my top 5. Is what I'm getting at. It and RE0 are RE games I go back and forth on if I should even let's play one day. But the difference between it and RE0 is that RE0 is the one that I'm leaning more on. I will never let's play it, but there are still times I consider it. Whereas RE7, I'm almost certain I'm gonna let's play it one day. It's just I don't want to do it yet. So yeah, I'm sorry that I wasted your time 30 minutes basically talking about basically shitting on a game that a lot of people love. I'm really sorry about that. I know that there are probably some people who are gonna be angry with me because of that, because there's some people who like act like this game is the second coming of Resident Evil, when in reality that was RE2 remake. RE7 was kind of just a stepping stone in a way. But yeah, I'm about done here. Hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy this new type of video, please leave a like, because it tells me that I can keep making them. It tells me that it's a good idea to make them. So without further ado, bye.